Hey guys, in this video I will be talking about every single fetter in the game, besides the ones you can't obtain of course. So Tobirama, the Ninja Swordswoman Ringo, Shizune, and Jugo, but you can get Jugo right now, it's a weird event. You have to spend $1 every 5 days, and I want this video to be out now, so I don't really want to wait another 5 days. I will maybe make a Jugo video if you guys want me to, and do a guide over him, and I'll be talking about fetters, but he really is just an A partner. In this video, I'm going to be basically going over all the fetters, the stats they give you, the way they affect the character and how good they are, because there's some characters who are like only really good because of their fetters, like Asuma, and some characters are just really bad because of fetters. So it's kind of interesting to talk about. It'll probably be a very long video. I'm going to have timestamps in the description, so you can go to whatever character that you want to know, or you could just watch this all the way through. It's fully up to you and the way you want to do it. But I mean, if I was you, I would probably be going through the timestamps to look at what characters I really want to know what their fetters are and how they affect them. Also, this is information I just got after I already wrote the entire script, so the script might be a little bit off with the Susanno Sasuke, but Susanno Sasuke, there is an event for him out, like right now. It just came out like 15 minutes ago. For me at least, for you guys it's been maybe like a day because I'm posting this tomorrow, but it's a ranking recharge where you need to spend gold to get him. Only the 2 top people in your server who spent the most gold will be able to get him, sadly. But he is just really strong, so I can see why they decided to do this, because it just makes so much more sense. For a spin event, he's way too strong to be in a spin event. He's significantly stronger than Kisame Naruto, so I can see why they did this, to be honest. But yeah, so without further ado, on to the video. The first character we're doing is Kabuto. We're doing A partners first, then S partners after, then SS partners at the end. So, first off we're doing Kabuto. His fetters are Tsunade, Shippuden Naruto, and Teenage Sasuke. Tsunade gives you 5.4% HP and 1.7% hit. Shippuden Naruto gives you 2.1% crit resistance, and Teenage Sasuke gives you 5% damage. Kabuto's fetters aren't too hard to get, and they give you pretty good stats, so Kabuto has always been like a really good character, and the fetters are really good too. They're easily obtained, and you get Sasuke for free, and Shippuden Naruto just by playing the game and doing the quest to get your VIP points up. You don't have to spend money, but it'll take you a long time to get anywhere near Shippuden Naruto with not spending money, but you can do it. It is possible. So you always want to have the support, so I'll always say to use Kabuto because you get him within the second week of just buying him. The best support of course is strength of 100 Sakura, and Tsunade is really good too, but if you can't get either of them, like I said before, just get Kabuto. He's very useful on your team. Next up is Karin. Her fetters are Shippuden Sasuke and Kid Naruto. So Shippuden Sasuke gives you 7% HP and Kid Naruto gives you 4% crit damage reduction. Now, her fetters are really easy to get. You get both of them for free, but I mean there's only 2 of them, and that is kind of rough. It makes it a little bit like worse for fetters wise, but since you get them both for free, I think it's pretty good because of that. And she's Yang release, so she's pretty good because of that. If you're looking for an A partner to use, I think she's a pretty good person to use, especially since her fetters give you HP and crit damage reduction. Those are some decent stats. So overall, I would say that if you really need a person to use, you can use her, but there's just way better people, to be honest. As partners that are event characters are just better. Now there's Kimmimaro. Kimmimaro's fetters are Orochimaru, Gara, and Sakanukan. Orochimaru gives you 5.4% HP and 4.4% crit damage reduction, while Gara gives you 1.4% crit, and then Sakan and Ukan gives you 5% damage. His fetters are pretty easily obtainable besides Orochimaru, but one is a B partner and the other one's an A partner. So those are really good. You always want to look for A partner and B partner feathers, because those are very easily attainable and you can upgrade them a lot on your character, which will make the stats they give you even more. Orochimaru still gives you really good stats, so if you end up getting him, that's definitely a good one. Kimmimaro is also one of my favorite tanks, but especially for A partner wise. I think he's the best A partner tank because he's yin release, and yin and yang is just really good to always have, especially for an A partner. That's why all the A partners I've went through that are yin and yang release, I will always just praise them more than the average person. The next one's Kakashi. Kakashi's fetters are Might Guy, Zabusa with Haku, and Kid Naruto with Kid Sasuke. So Might Guy gives you 1.1% crit and 1.7% hit, while Zabusa with Haku gives you 9.6% damage and 7.7% crit reduction, and Kid Naruto with Kid Sasuke gives you 6% HP. These fetters are so extremely easy. You get Kid Naruto and Kid Sasuke for free. You get Might Guy for free on the 7th day. And Zabusa with Haku, the hardest thing about this is getting an A partner, which is so unbelievably easy. Kakashi in general just has amazing fetters. He's an amazing character to use, and all you need to do is spend $1 in the game and you'll get Kakashi. And if you don't even want to spend money, you can get him for free on the 2nd week as long as you buy him in the shop. Then we have Deidara. Deidara's fetters are Shippuden Sasuke, Sasori, and Kankuro. Shippuden Sasuke gives you 1.4% dodge, then Sasori gives you 1.4% crit, then Kankuro gives you 3.5% crit damage. Now, just looking at the stats and the obtainability of the fetters, it's pretty good. Dodge itself is a really good stat to have, and whenever you see that, you have to think of it as just being better than normal. But since he's ranged, you don't really need dodge on you. Ranged people mainly just need damage output, but you don't really need tankiness, you don't need HP, and you don't need crit damage reduction. But for him, he's got crit and he's got crit damage. That's really good to have on a ranged. Just the dodge isn't that necessary. It's still pretty good, just not fully necessary. And now we got Neji. Neji's fetters are Hinata, Teenage Naruto, and Kimmimaro. Hinata gives you 5% damage, Teenage Naruto gives you 1% crit, and Kimmimaro gives you 3% HP and 1.5% crit damage. You get literally all these fetters besides Kimmimaro for free, and Kimmimaro is a B partner. So you'll be getting Neji's fetters pretty much instantaneously every single time you play this game. As long as you do maybe 20 draws, you will get Kimmimaro. So if you're looking for a very early game character, it's him. Neji's a good tank. He gets his fetters pretty much instantaneously the moment the game starts. So if you're just looking for someone that you need when you first start off, this is definitely them. But he's really not a late game character. Late game characters are event S partner characters, to be honest. And I'll be getting on that with more later. I mainly rank characters in this game based off how late game they are and how early game they are. Late game characters are the really good ones. Early games, if you get in the beginning, you could use it, but you don't want to use it later on. So yeah, that's my ranking system, and I'll be doing that with a lot of people as we go on. And now you have Zabusa. Zabusa is Kakashi, Haku, and Teenage Naruto. Kakashi gives you 8.4% damage and 1.7% crit. Haku gives you 10% HP, and Kid Naruto gives you 1.5% crit resistance. Now, for the Kakashi, I upgraded the fetter, so this isn't actually as strong as this is way stronger than it usually is. So you need to look at this with kind of resistance. I didn't have a Zabusa that wasn't just fetters upgraded, so the numbers are a little bit inflated and higher up. The fetters are just really easy to upgrade because they're very easy to get. There's Kid Naruto you get for free, Haku you basically get, and Kakashi you can get within 2 weeks. So if you're going with a water team, honestly, you should 100% use Zabusa. You could use so much. You could do Zabusa, Kisame with Suigetsu. That whole team right there is really good. Or if you get like Mei or something, you can go that. Then you can go Sakura, because Sakura is a really good support that you could just use. She heals your entire team. So if you're going to water like team comp early game, you definitely want to use Zabusa. You can use like Kisame, Mei, Suigetsu, literally anyone. Now we got Sasori. Sasori's fetters are Konan, Sage Kabuto, and Strength of 100 Sakura. Konan gives you 1.4% dodge, Sage Kabuto gives you 1.4% crit, and Strength of 100 Sakura gives you 5.4% damage and 2.7% crit damage. Now these fetters are pretty hard to get, don't get me wrong. You get Konan for free. She gives you dodge, which is pretty good, but it's not that good since he's ranged. Ranged, like I said before, ranged for dodge isn't that useful. When you have more of a ranged person, you want to have mainly damage and damage output. While if you have melee, you want tankiness and you also want damage. And then like dodge on like a tank would be so good, which is also why Sarutobi is really good. Then we have Suigetsu. Suigetsu's fetters are Zabusa, Karin, Shippuden, and Sasuke. Now, Zabusa gives you 14% HP, Karin gives you 5.6% crit damage reduction, and Shippuden Sasuke gives you 4.2% damage with 1.3% hit. So, the Zabusa was upgraded once, obviously. It was not that high, but it makes me think that the Zabusa was actually 10% HP or 9% HP, which is still really, really high up. And if you want to use, like I said, water at all, Suigetsu with Zabusa at all is a really, really good team. His fetters are really easy to get. You get Zabusa pretty much no matter what as you play, and Shippuden and Sasuke you get within a month of playing if you're on the #1 team. And then Karin you get within the second week. So you'll get the entire Suigetsu's like fetters within a couple of weeks. So I would definitely recommend going Suigetsu, especially since he's a good tank, and there's not much like actual 8-partner tanks out there. And now we have Hidan. For Hidan's fetters, it's Pain and Kakuzu. Pain gives you 9% HP, and Kakuzu gives you 2.8% dodge. Now, like I said before, the dodge is upgraded, so it's definitely like 1% dodge or 1.2% dodge. Those are usually the most common ones. But if you were just to look at the stats that these fetters are giving you, it is absolutely perfect for a tank. If you're a tank, all you're really looking for is survivability. And this gives you perfect survivability. You get 9% HP and you get dodge. That is really, really good for a tank. So if you're looking for an early game player, or like early game character at all, Hidan's pretty good. He is an A partner and he's fire, so if you want to go with Sasuke, you can use Hidan if you need a tank. Now we have Rock Lee. Rock Lee's fetters are Gara, Kimmimaro, and Teenage Sasuke. So Gara gives you 7% damage, Kimmimaro gives you 1.4% crit, and Teenage Sasuke gives you 1.5% hit. Now all these fetters are very easily obtainable. Like I said before, you always want to look for A partner ones. You get Kimmimaro within week 2. As long as you buy them in shop, you're completely good. You get Teenage Sasuke for free with just the story mode, and you get Gara. You're probably gonna get Gara as long as you do summons, and as long as you keep playing, they just give you scrolls for free, so you should get Gara by any time. And for a melee attack, this is pretty much all you really need. If he had dodge, it'd be just a little bit more perfect, but he's got damage, he's got crit, and he's got hit damage. So really, this is exactly what Rock Lee would want. So as long as you get him and you really want to have your attack lineup, you could definitely have Rock Lee as your front lineup for attack and fire. Next up is Gara. His fetters are with Teenage Naruto, Temari with Kankuro. Now Teenage Naruto gives you 5% HP, and while Temari with Kankuro gives you 1.8% crit resistance and 4.8% crit damage reduction. Now his fetters are pretty bad because you don't really need to have crit resistance and crit damage reduction when you're ranged, but Gara as a whole is a really good A partner because he's attack and ranged. Attack ranged is really good. You can let your tank all the damage while you sit in the back and just shoot them constantly. And the Teenage Naruto gives him 5% HP, which is also not really useful. But like I said before, Gara is pretty good in this game. If you're looking for an attack when you're using wind, he's definitely someone you would want to consider using. Now for the most useless fetters in the game, Temari. Temari's fetters are Teenage Naruto, and that is it. That is the only fetter she has, and all it does is give her 5% damage. Now, her fetters are pretty much a joke. The sad part is, she's a very solid character though. If you want a ranged attack and you haven't gotten Gara, she's not a joke. She does damage. Her ultimate is unironically really good. Her damage is really high up. She's a good character. It's just no point of using her when you can use Gara. If you have Gara and Temari, you should be using Gara and not her. And now we have Asuma. Asuma, his fetters are really good. His fetters are Kisame, Hidan, and Shippuden Naruto. Now, Kisame gives you 5.4% HP and 5.4% damage. Hidan gives you 1.7% hit and 1.7% crit resistance, and Shippuden Naruto gives you 5.6% crit damage reduction. Now, every one of these play really good together. He is a melee attack that goes in there and needs to be a little bit more tanky so he doesn't die immediately. That's where his crit resistance, his crit damage reduction, and his HP stats come into play. They give him so much, and then since he's also attack, he deals a lot of damage. So he's gonna want damage and hit, which he also has that. So he has everything he needs, and these are pretty easy people to get. You get Hidan pretty much no matter what. And if you get lucky and you get Kisame, then you have Kisame now. The only one that's hard is Shippuden Naruto, but if you buy the Itachi event and then you buy the Jiraiya pass, you'll have VIP enough to have Shippuden Naruto. Now, do I say it's worth it? Probably not, but I mean, Asuma is pretty good. You don't even need the 5.6% crit damage reduction. That's not even that good compared to the HP and damage you get from this. So Asuma is a really high tier partner solely because of his fetters and because of how good he plays in with Naruto. And now we have Kakuzu. His fetters are Kakashi and Shippuden Naruto. Now I assume Kakashi gives you 9% damage and Shippuden Naruto gives you 3.5% crit damage. Since the Kakashi one was upgraded once, it's 14% now, which is why I originally think it was 9%, which is still really good. And if you're going a lightning lineup, then he's a pretty solid person to add to your team. He does pretty good. You get Kakashi within the second week. You're probably not going to get Shippuden Naruto, but that's not even the one that gives you all the main damage Kakashi is. So if you want to use Kakuzu, then you could definitely get Kakashi's thing. I think that's very essential in his fetters. Then we have Kankuro. Kankuro's fetters are Sasori, Deidara, and Shino. Now Sasori gives you 7% damage, Deidara gives you 2.1% crit resistance, and Shino gives you 7% HP. Now all of these are very easily obtainable, so that's really good, and they give you some really good stats. Besides the HP and crit resistance, you get really good damage from him. And Kankuro used to be really good. His ultimate used to be like 10 seconds. It was nothing. You'd be able to spam it constantly. Now it's 40 seconds, so they nerfed him like pretty hard. It's just that he's still range and attack, so he's still really good if you want to be able to use him. And now we finish off the A partners with Tenten. Tenten's fetters are Neji with Rock Lee, then there's Kakuzu, and then there's Darlie. Neji with Rock Lee gives you 10.8% damage and 3.3% hit. And then Kakuzu gives you 1% dodge, and then Darlie gives you 6% HP. Now these fetters seem really good, and most of them are attainable, but besides maybe Darlie with the spin event. But I mean, Tenten as a whole just really isn't that good of a person, even if her fetters are seemingly this good. But I mean, dodge, you really don't want that on a ranged person. Her damage is still pretty good. It's just that Tenten just isn't good. She doesn't have good abilities, she doesn't do a lot of damage, she's just kind of there, and I feel like she is in the show and even in most games. Like, Tenten's never really a god tier person, to be honest. We never really expected her to be one. And now we have Minato. Minato's fetters is KCM Naruto, Sarutobi, and Kakashi. Now, KCM Naruto gives you 8% HP, Sarutobi gives you 4.8% damage and 1% crit, then Kakashi gives you 1% dodge. Now, all these fetters are actually pretty good. You got good damage, you got good HP, you got dodge, everything you need as a melee like attacker that just goes in. Although he's control, he still does a lot of damage. So if you really want a really strong character, Minato is definitely one of them, but of course there's like Sarutobi. Sarutobi's like the best tank, Tsunade is one of the best supports, but I mean, I would give Minato S tier, especially since his fetters aren't the hardest. KCM's really hard, Kakashi's really easy. Most S partners will have S partner fetters, so from this point on, I won't be grading it as harshly as how hard they are to get, because all of them are very hard to get. But if one's very easy to get, then I will make sure I explain how that is easy. A lot of people have like Jiraiya, people have Susanno, Sasuke, like those are just impossible. Like, those are so hard to get, you need to spend a lot of money to get those. Next up we have Hanzou. Hanzou's fetters are Konan, Jiraiya, Pain, and Sage Kabuto. Now, Konan gives you 5.4% HP and 1.7% crit resistance. Jiraiya gives you 5.4% damage and 1.7% hit. Pain gives you 1.6% crit, and Sage Kabuto gives you 2.4% crit resistance. Hanzou is a very, very solid tank. I will say he's probably like one of the second best tanks, maybe a little less. Sarutobi is better, but Hanzou is really good. He also has 4 fetters, which is a very good bonus, and a lot of S partners actually do have 4 fetters, so that will significantly boost like the power you get and how good the fetters are. And plus, he's given pretty much everything a melee tank needs besides dodge. If he had dodge, it would be perfect, but he's got damage, HP, crit resistance, and he's got another crit resistance. He's got 2 crit resistance. So he's got everything a tank will really need to survive in this game. So I would give him a pretty high tier. He's definitely a late game character. And now we have Itachi. Itachi's fetters are Susanno, Sasuke, Sage Kabuto, and Kisame. Susanno Sasuke gives you 8% damage, Sage Kabuto gives you 4.8% HP and 1.1% dodge, and Kisame gives you 2.4% crit resistance. Now, some of these are pretty hard to get. Susanno Sasuke is pretty hard to get, but now that there's an event for him, he's a little less, but only the top 2 people on your server can get him. So I would say Susanno Sasuke is pretty hard, Sage Kabuto is pretty hard, if you only get him if you do the event, and Kisame is pretty easy, but he gives you crit resistance. The only actual good fetters is with Susanno Sasuke that gives him damage. He doesn't need dodge, he doesn't need HP, and he doesn't need crit resistance. Damage is really the only thing that like ranged would need, and he's the only one that gives him Susanno Sasuke, which will kind of ruin it, to be honest, because he's gonna be so hard to get. So Itachi's fetters are pretty bad, but Itachi's just a really good character in general. So he's definitely a late game character, not an early game character. Although he's definitely early game if you get him early game. He's just a really good. You want him at your final lineup. Itachi is S tier without any doubt in my mind. The next one is Kisame. Kisame's fetters are Itachi, Zetsu, Madara with Tobi, and Light Guy with Killer Bee. Now, Itachi gives you 8% HP, Zetsu gives you 2.4% crit resistance, and Madara with Tobi gives you 1.5% dodge with 5.8% crit reduction, and Light Guy with Killer Bee gives you 6% damage and 1.8% hit. Now, he's got some really good fetters. He's got Itachi, gives you HP, which he really needs. He's got crit resistance, which he needs. He's got dodge and crit damage reduction, and he's got damage with hit. All these are very useful, but now let's look at it subjectively. You're not really going to get Madara. Most people are not going to have Madara. He costs like $2,000. So most people won't have him. You will be getting Zetsu most likely, And if you want to spend $25, you get Itachi. And now there's a spin event for Itachi, so you don't even have to do that. Then there's like Mike Guy with Killer B, you'll most likely get that one. So his fetters are pretty obtainable, but Kisame is an early game character. If you get him early on, you should definitely use him. You should make a water lineup if you get him, and then you could have a pretty good team. But he's definitely not a character you're going to want to have later on in the game. Once you get an event character, like say Itachi, Sarutobi, Tsunade, Hanzou, literally any event character, you should use them instead of Kisame like 9 times out of 10. He's not really a character that you want to use when you're level like 65. You're not going to be wanting to use Kisame. Now we have Mei. Mei's fetters are Tsunade, A, and Shippuden Sasuke. Tsunade gives you 1% dodge, 1% crit. A gives you 8% damage, and Shippuden Sasuke gives you 6% HP. Now these fetters are pretty good, they give you some good stats, and they're kind of easy, they're not that hard. You will get Shippuden Sasuke for free, and you can just buy A in the shop. Tsunade is the only hard one, and you don't really need that. Like I said, you don't really need dodge when you're ranged. Well, once they get past your tank, they're pretty much gonna steamroll your team. So, dodge won't help you out that much, but A does give you 8% damage. That's pretty good. You're definitely gonna want that. But every single summon that you have, like Inoki, Mei, Killer B, all the summons, they're not that useful. They're early game people. They're not late game characters. Like I said, event or late game characters. Now we're on Mike Guy. Mike Guy's fetters are Madara, Kisame, and Rock Lee. Madara gives you 1.2% crit and 1.8% hit, and while Kisame gives you 4.8% damage and 2.4% crit damage, and Rock Lee gives you 6% HP. His fetters are perfect for a melee attack bruiser. He's got crit, he's got hit, he's got damage, he's got crit damage, and he's got HP. So he'll live for longer, he does a lot of damage when he goes in there, and all his fetters are pretty easy to get besides Madara. Madara, you're not going to get that, but you're still going to get 4.8% damage and crit damage, and then HP, and then you get this character for free. They just give him to you. At your 7th day of playing, you will just get you will get Mike Guy. So, if you're looking for a team with Sasuke, you should definitely be using Mike Guy. He's not that good of a person, he's definitely not a late game character. He's more of like a mid game character, someone that you use while you situate the team that you want to have. You should be saving up your gold for event characters, and you should be planning out your team from the moment your account starts. Now for Konan, Konan's fetters are Pain, Tobi, and Temari. Pain gives you 4.8% damage and 2.4% crit damage, while Tobi gives you 1.6% dodge, and Temari gives you 6% HP. Her fetters are pretty good stats, they're all pretty, actually yeah, they're pretty obtainable besides maybe Pain, but I mean, you don't want dodge, like I said. She's a support and range, she doesn't need dodge, and she doesn't need HP. She doesn't need damage either. She doesn't really need much in general. She just needs her abilities, and she doesn't really get that, so you'd be probably looking for damage. So the only good actual fetter stat that you get from her is from Pain, and Pain's the hard one. So when you look at this, she's probably not that good. If you don't have Kabuto, then you should be using Konan. But if you do have Kabuto, you should honestly be using Kabuto over Konan, because he heals your entire team. He's actually useful, he does a lot, and Konan really doesn't. Konan's mainly an early game character. Now we have A. A's fetters are only 2. It's got Killer B and Minato. Killer B gives you 4.8% HP and 4.8% damage, while Minato gives you 2.4% crit resistance. Now he only has 2 fetters and not 3, so that's not that good. However, Killer B, him alone gives you really good stats. Since he is he's a melee person that goes in, he gives some pretty good stats. You need HP and damage every time you're melee, and Killer B gives you both, and Killer B is really easy to get. So if you're looking to go a full lightning comp, honestly you should be using like A, Killer B, 3rd Hokage, and Darui. And if you use that, then like all the fetters go with each other, and they're just really good in general. And now we're on Killer Bee. Killer Bee's fetters are KCM Naruto and Shippuden Sasuke. KCM Naruto gives you 8% HP, and Shippuden Sasuke gives you 6% damage. Now these are some pretty good stats for a tank melee. A tank melee would want HP and would want damage, and this is exactly how he gets. Now you get Shippuden Sasuke for free, but KCM Naruto costs a lot. It's like 20 to 30k gold, and after looking at it, and now that Susanno Sasuke is out, you really don't want to get KCM Naruto. He's actually not that good. KCM Naruto doesn't do a lot of damage. Honestly, Susanno Sasuke and Strength of 100 Sakura are way better than KCM Naruto. He's like the worst S hero there is. So it is kind of rough, but I mean, you don't need to have KCM Naruto because you still get 6% damage from Shippuden Sasuke and you get him for free. Now for Sarutobi. Sarutobi's fetters are Orochimaru, Tsunade, Shippuden Naruto, and Kakashi. Now Orochimaru gives you 4.8% damage, 1.5% hit. Tsunade gives you 2.4% crit resistance. Shippuden Naruto gives you 1.2% dodge, and Kakashi gives you 6% HP. These fetters are extremely good. It gives everything a tank would want. It gives you damage, hit, crit resistance, dodge, and HP. This is one of the main reasons why Sarutobi is the #1 tank, but it's also because his abilities. He can make himself invulnerable. He can literally do so much. He sucks him in, he doesn't die. He is straight up just the best tank you can get. If you ever have like 15,000 gold or 10,000 gold and you want to do the Sarutobi spin event, 100% do it. Sarutobi is one of the best characters, definitely a late game character you're going to want on your lineup. He is extremely valuable and you should definitely be getting him. Now we have Genjutsu. Genjutsu's fetters are Inoki, Gara, Suigetsu. Inoki gives you 1.2% dodge and 1.2% crit. Gara gives you 6% HP, and Suigetsu gives you 6% damage. Now, these fetters are very, very easily obtainable. All of them are A besides one is Inoki, and he's a summon that you can just get. Like, none of these are event characters. They don't give you really the stats that you want, but they're still pretty useful stats. Like, as much as I say you don't want dodge on a range, it's still useful to have dodge on a ranged person. It's just not that good. But since these are just so easily obtainable, you can get all of his fetters so easily, I would say that he's above average in fetters wise, but I don't really like the character that much. I don't think he does that much damage. He doesn't do that much for your team in general. So if you get him, you can use him, but you don't really have to. But there is an event for him now, where if you do 200 draws without pulling an S, you get him. But those are so bad, you should never be doing those events. You have to use so much gold if you do that. If you have just 200 scrolls saved up, then yeah, you should do it. But you should not be buying scrolls for this event. It's just not worth it. Now for Jiraiya. Jiraiya's fetters are Pain, Itachi, Kakashi, Shippuden, Naruto with Minato. Now, Pain gives you 4.8% HP and 1.5% crit resistance. Itachi gives you 1.5% hit and 1% crit. Kakashi gives you 6% HP, and Shippuden Naruto with Minato gives you 9% damage. Now this is perfect with an attack melee. It gives you damage, HP, hit, crit, HP again, and crit resistance. This is everything you need to have as a melee attack. This isn't the main reason why Jiraiya is the best, but Jiraiya is just straight up the best S partner in the game. Now, of course, there's better S heroes like Strength of 100 Sakura and Susanno Sasuke. They're obviously better than Jiraiya. The Madara obviously better than Jiraiya, but he's SS. They're all S heroes. For S partner wise, Jiraiya is the best person in my mind. He does so much damage. He does everything you need as a melee attack. He is so unbelievably useful. That's why he costs $800. He is not cheap, and if you ever have him and you don't use him, you're actually crazy. Now we have Tsunade. Tsunade's fetters are Jiraiya, Orochimaru, Strength of 100 Sakura, and Sarutobi. Now Jiraiya gives you 4.8% HP, 1.5% crit resistance. Orochimaru gives you 8% damage. Strength of 100 Sakura gives you 6.4% crit damage reduction, and Sarutobi gives you 1.5% dodge. Now these fetters are already good because there's 4 of them, which is very solid. But since she's ranged support, you won't really need dodge, you won't really need crit damage reduction and crit resistance, or HP, but she's still really good. Tsunade is like the best, one of the best supports. Of course, strength of 100 Sakura is better, but for S partner wise, she's definitely the best support there is. She'll heal your whole team, definitely worth it. Her fetters isn't really good for her. It'll be better for like a melee person, but it's still pretty good. I would say that her fetters are above average, but they're pretty hard to get is the main thing. You're not going to get Jiraiya, you're not going to get strength of 100, and you're probably not going to get Orochimaru. The only thing you're really going to get maybe is Sarutobi. So her fetters aren't really good for obtainable wise, but at this point all of these people's fetters are really hard to get once you get to event characters, because they're not playing around. So I would say that the stats they give you just in general are pretty good, but not for obtainability wise. Then we have Orochimaru. Orochimaru's fetters are Itachi, Tsunade, Kabuto, and Sasuke Shippuden. Now Itachi gives you 1.5% hit and 5% crit damage reduction, while Tsunade gives you 8% HP, Kabuto gives you 6% damage, and Sasuke Shippuden gives you 1.5% crit resistance. Now these fetters are very good for a melee attack, so this is really solid for what you want. Because of these fetters, it makes Orochimaru really viable, but he's kind of hard to get is the thing. You need to be the 3rd strongest person on your server within the first week, or you're not going to be getting him. Or you do the 200 summon thing, which is really hard to do, because you're almost definitely going to get at least one S partner out of one of those worlds. You're doing 200, so of course you'd be getting one, and then it costs so much gold, it's just not worth doing unless you bought the Jiraiya pass and already have like 150 draws already. Next we have Darui, which is Darui's fetters are A with Killer B, Might Guy, Tenten, and Karin. So A with Killer B gives you 10% damage, Might Guy gives you 4.8% HP and 1.5% crit resistance. But then Tenten gives you 1.2% dodge, and then Karin gives you 6% HP. These fetters are actually fucking god tier. Like, they give you everything you need. They're easily obtainable, they give you damage, they give you HP, crit resistance, dodge, and HP again. Every single thing you will need of like in a melee like Darui, you're gonna get 10% damage just for A and Killer B, 2 people that you can easily get. Then Might Guy, you get him for free, and you get 4.8% HP and 1.5% crit resistance. Tenten gives you dodge, and Karin gives you HP. Darui is actually kind of sleeper OP. He's really good, and if you really want to go lightning, then he's just what you're gonna want to go. You're gonna want to have him, the Raikage, like I said for Killer B, you're gonna want him, the Raikage, Killer B, and A. Like that whole lineup would just destroy everything. That's such a terrifying lineup. Next we have Pain. Pain's fetters are with Tobi, Shippuden Naruto, Tsunade with Kakashi. Now Tobi gives you 1.6% dodge, Shippuden Naruto gives you 6% HP, and Tsunade with Kakashi gives you 5.4% damage and 2.7% crit damage. These fetters are pretty decent, but like I said with everything else, ranged with dodge isn't that good, especially with HP. The main thing that you're going to be looking for is damage when you're ranged, and that's Tsunade with Kakashi. So that's not that bad. If you get Tsunade and you have Kakashi, that is the only fetter that you're going to really want with Pain, is the last one. So yeah, if you get Tsunade, then the fetters are really good. If you don't have her, then it's kind of eh. But Pain itself is a really good character. He's definitely a late game character. I would put him on S tier, to be honest. He's just really solid. Definitely someone that you're going to be wanting to use. Now we have Mu. Mu's fetters are with Itachi with Sage Kabuto, Tobirama, Inoki, and Deidara. Now Itachi with Sage Kabuto gives you 1.5% dodge and 2.2% crit resistance, while Tobirama gives you 7.2% damage and 1.5% crit. Inoki gives you 8% HP, and Deidara gives you 1.8% hit. Now the really only useful Fetty here is the one that you can't get, sadly. Tobirama gives him insane damage and crit. You don't really need HP and you don't really need dodge and crit resistance, but the data one gives you hit damage, so that's pretty good. This isn't that bad. I would say this is more on average what you'd be looking at with Fetters. This isn't too great or too little. This is just about average, I would say. Not that good of a character. But if you want to go Earth, you definitely want to have Mu, and you're gonna want to have Sage Kabuto with you. Then you could go Yin and Yang after that, after you have 2 Earths. Next we have Tobi. Tobi's Fetters are with Madara, Zetsu, Pain, and Minato. Madara gives you 1.2% crit and 3% crit damage. Zetsu gives you 8% HP. Pain gives you 4.8% damage and 1.5% crit resistance. And Minato gives you 6.4% crit damage reduction. Now these are pretty good for a tank. Like, these are pretty perfect. You have HP, you have damage, crit, resistance, and crit damage reduction. This is what you're going to mainly want as a tank. And Tobi as a whole is a really good character now. I never really knew this until recently, but his ult is a perfect reflection, which does 100% of the damage you do to him back to you. So he's just really good in high rating. Like, once you see people who have like 50 million power, they use him, they use Tobi. Now you get him for free. That's amazing, right? I would give him a low S or a high A tier. Like, he's not that strong, it's just his ultimate is really strong, and he's a tank. He is altogether a really good player, and you should be using him. Now we have the third Hokage. The third Hokage's Fetters are with Sarutobi with Inoki, A, Might Guy, and Gara. Sarutobi with Inoki gives you 6% damage and 1.2% crit. A gives you 8% HP, Might Guy gives you 8% damage, and Gara gives you 1.8% crit resistance. This is pretty good. Like, you get HP, you get damage again, and you get crit with crit resistance. For a melee tank, this is pretty solid. Like I said before, lightning lineup, he's a very solid person to have on that lineup, and it's just really good in general. Like, him, Killer B, A, and Darui is just such a nasty lineup to use. A lot of high-ranking people actually use that lineup sometimes, just to have like the 4 lightning bonus, because that's really good. And third Hokage is just really good in general. He's a cool tank, he does a lot of damage, and he tanks a lot. And now we have Inoki. Inoki's Fetters are with Madara, Deidara, and Sasuke Shippuden. Madara gives you 6% HP and 1.2% dodge. Deidara gives you 6% damage, and Sasuke Shippuden gives you 3% crit damage. Now these Fetters are kinda good. You're not really gonna get Madara ever. So it gives you damage and crit damage, exactly what you're gonna want from a ranged player. And Sasuke Shippuden and Deidara, you're gonna be getting those pretty much no matter what. So if you really want to use him and you get him early game, you can use him. But like I said about all the other summons, Inoki's not a late game character. You're not going to be using him when you're level 60. He's not that good. The only really useful thing about him is his shield he gives everyone at the start of the game. But besides that, Inoki is pretty bad, to be honest. You should be using him only when you first start off and not when you have all your event characters. Then we have Zetsu. Zetsu's Fetters are Madara, Tobi, and Kabuto. Madara gives you 6% damage and 1.8% hit, while Tobi gives you 2.4% crit damage and 1% dodge. Then Kabuto gives you 6% HP. These Fetters are kind of eh. Like I said about all the other summons, this isn't really that good. He's an early game character, you're never gonna get Madara. Tobi gives you dodge, but I mean, he's ranged, he doesn't really need dodge. He does have crit damage though, that's pretty useful. The HP isn't that good for ranged, but I mean, it's still effective, I guess. You're gonna get Kabuto pretty much no matter what, as long as you buy him in the shop. So he's not that good. It's just if you get him out of your like rolls, then you can use him. He's an S no matter what. He's still an S partner, definitely usable. Just once you get later in the game and you're like way higher in level, you should not be using Zetsu. Now we have our last S, which is Sage Kabuto. Sage Kabuto's feathers are Orochimaru, Tsunade, Jiraiya, Itachi with Susanno Sasuke. First one is Orochimaru, gives you 8% damage, Tsunade gives you 6.4% crit damage reduction, Jiraiya gives you 1% dodge and 1.5% crit resistance, Itachi with Susanno Sasuke gives you 7.2% HP and 2.2% hit. Now, all of these are pretty hard to get. You're not going to get most of these. Susanno Sasuke, you only get him if you spend a shit ton of gold out of that event. Jiraiya is $800. Tsunade, you're definitely going to want to get no matter what. And Orochimaru is pretty hard to get. But, I mean, the ones that you're looking for that you want is definitely going to be Orochimaru, because that gives you 8% damage, which is what you're going to want as a range. And that's really it. Like, there's also the 2.2% hit that you get, but you're not going to really be getting the Susanno Sasuke. So, his feathers are pretty He's a pretty good, like, character, though. He does a lot of damage. He's pretty useful. If you ever want to go Earth lineup, you should go him with Mu. But other than that, there's not much really more to say about Sage Kabuto. Then finally, we have Madara. Madara's feathers are Might Guy, KCM Naruto with Susanno Sasuke. Might Guy gives you 2.1% hit, and KCM Naruto with Susanno Sasuke gives you 4.8% damage and 3.9% crit damage reduction. Now, Madara's feathers is literally a huge letdown. But at least we're getting 2 more different section of feathers coming soon. So that means they're going to be adding in new people that they're going to add as his feathers. So I'm pretty happy about that. Hashirama is definitely going to be one of them, and I can't wait for them to send Hashirama out. To be fair, his feathers aren't that good, but Madara as a whole is god tier. You're definitely going to want to use Madara. He's extremely good. He's SS. The thing is, he's thousands of dollars. You're probably not going to be able to get him until there's an event of him. And when there is an event of Madara, I will be making a video on it. So yeah, that was the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. This took me like at least 4 hours to 6 hours to make already. I haven't even started editing yet. This has just been the voiceover. The editing's going to take a while. The rendering is going to take a while. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, leave a like, subscribe, and until next time.